She came as his nurse, but became his greatest love. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The fluorescent lights of Westbridge Private Hospital hummed softly as Anna Monroe adjusted her badge and stepped out of the elevator on the top floor. It was just after midnight, the corridors quiet, the air sterile and cold. She had worked countless night shifts before, but tonight felt different, heavier somehow. Maybe it was the message from Dr. Harris summoning her to a special assignment. Or maybe it was the uneasy silence of this wing, where only one patient resided. She paused at the glass door marked, Suite 701 authorized personnel only. Inside, a man lay motionless beneath white sheets, surrounded by machines that blinked and breathed for him. His name was Ethan Ward, 34 years old, founder and CEO of Ward Innovations, a self-made millionaire whose face had once been on magazine covers before a car accident left him in a coma nearly a year ago. Anna's breath caught as she stepped closer. Even now, he looked powerful, sharp jawline, dark hair swept neatly back, a body that spoke of discipline and control. Yet all of it was still, fragile, human. Dr. Harris's voice echoed in her head. This job isn't for the weak-hearted. He's been unresponsive for months. Most nurses last a week. Anna placed her bag on the counter, slipping on a fresh pair of gloves. Let's prove them wrong, she whispered under her breath. The clock ticked quietly as she prepared a basin of warm water. Steam curled upward, blurring the sterile edges of the room. She dipped a cloth into the water, wrung it out, and began wiping his arm, gentle and methodical. You know, Mr. Ward, she murmured, most people would pay to sleep through their problems, but you've taken it to a whole new level. A faint smile tugged at her lips, though she didn't expect an answer. Her voice was soft, meant as much to calm herself as to fill the silence. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only reply. As she moved to adjust his pillow, she caught sight of the photographs pinned to the wall magazine covers, a framed article titled, The Relentless Visionary, and one image of him shaking hands with the mayor. The man in those pictures looked untouchable. The one before her now looked like someone who needed saving. Anna sighed, glancing at the clock. Another long night ahead. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a small portable cassette player, her ritual for night shifts. The music was old jazz, warm and steady, the kind her late father used to play. She set it near the window. You don't mind some company, do you? She said softly. Miles Davis is good for the soul, even the stubborn ones. The melody filled the room, slow and tender. For a brief second, she thought she saw a twitch in his fingers, a tiny, involuntary motion, but when she looked again, nothing. Maybe it was just the rhythm of the machine or her own imagination. Still, her pulse quickened. She leaned closer, studying his face. If you can hear me, blink twice, she said with a shaky laugh. No response. The silence stretched, and she exhaled, chiding herself. You're talking to a millionaire in a coma, Anna. Maybe you're the one who needs help. She turned back to her notes, unaware that behind her, the heart monitor's beeps had shifted, subtle, but not random. The line on the screen rose, paused, then steadied again. Outside, snow began to fall against the window, soft and soundless. And somewhere in that stillness, Ethan Ward's eyelids fluttered, just once, as if answering a voice only he could hear. Morning came slow and gray over Westbridge Private Hospital. The snow outside had turned to a soft drizzle, streaking the window panes with faint lines of silver. Anna Monroe stood beside Ethan Ward's bed, her clipboard tucked under one arm, a cup of lukewarm coffee in the other. Her eyes were heavy with fatigue, but her routine remained steady, precise. She checked his vitals, adjusted the IV, and replaced the flowers on the counter. Another day, Mr. Ward, she said quietly. Looks like the world is still spinning. The soft hum of machines answered her. Yet something about last night lingered in her mind, the flicker on the monitor, that almost imperceptible twitch in his hand. She had not told anyone. She was afraid they would dismiss it as exhaustion, or worse, as wishful thinking. Still, she could not shake the feeling that something had shifted. As she reached to smooth the sheets, her gaze caught his hand again. For a moment, she thought she saw the faintest movement so small it could have been the rhythm of her breath tricking her eyes. "Ethan," she whispered before catching herself. "Mr. Ward, if you can hear me, just know, you are not alone." She blinked, exhaled, and returned to her checklist. Hours passed. The ward lights dimmed again for the evening shift. Dr. Harris stopped by briefly to review her notes. "How is our sleeping giant?" he asked dryly. Anna forced a smile. "Stable as ever. No major changes. Keep at it," he said. "We are rotating new nurses next month, but I trust you to maintain professionalism." She nodded, masking the disappointment that pricked at her chest. The idea of leaving this room, this patient, felt oddly wrong. That night, as the rain turned heavier, Anna set the cassette player back on the windowsill. The warm crackle of jazz filled the room again. She pulled a chair closer to his bedside. "I do not know why I keep talking to you," she said softly, crossing her legs and resting her chin in her palm. "Maybe it is because silence in here feels like a weight. Or maybe I just like the idea that someone is listening." She let out a short laugh. "If you wake up and tell me to stop rambling, I might actually faint." Her voice grew quieter. "I think you were a difficult man, Mr. Ward. Everyone says so. Arrogant, untouchable, but I have seen people like that before. They build walls because something once hurt them too deeply. Maybe you just forgot how to let anyone close." A small gust rattled the window. The lights flickered for a second, and in that tiny moment, a sound broke through the hum of machines, a soft exhale that did not belong to her. Anna froze, her heart hammering in her chest. She leaned forward, eyes wide. Ethan's lips parted slightly. It was barely perceptible, but unmistakably real. His breathing had changed. She grabbed her stethoscope with trembling hands and pressed it to his chest. The rhythm was stronger, more deliberate. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You can hear me, can't you?" She rushed to the door, then hesitated, hand on the handle. If she called the doctors now, they would take over, flood the room, and she would be pushed aside. Some instinct told her this moment belonged to them, just her and him. She turned back, stepping close. "Ethan," she said softly, "if you can hear me, I need you to fight. You have been asleep long enough. Someone out there tried to break you, but they did not win. You are still here." For a heartbeat, nothing. Then, as if summoned by her words, his fingers twitched again. A single, unmistakable movement. Anna gasped, tears springing to her eyes. "That is it," she breathed. "That is you. You are coming back." The heart monitor beeped steadily, faster now, alive with rhythm. Anna covered her mouth, unable to stop smiling. She stayed by his side for the rest of the night, whispering to him, telling stories, promising he was safe. Outside, dawn began to glow pale gold over the city skyline. And for the first time since the accident, Ethan Ward's eyelids fluttered again, not from reflex, but from the slow awakening of a man returning to the world. The next morning, the hospital stirred awake under a pale sunrise. Nurses exchanged reports, machines beeped in steady rhythm, and the scent of disinfectant lingered in the hallways. Anna Monroe had not slept. She sat beside Ethan Ward's bed, her eyes fixed on his face, waiting for another sign. The night before, she had seen his eyelids move. It had not been her imagination. There was life behind that stillness. When Dr. Harris entered, coffee in hand, Anna stood quickly. "Doctor," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "His vitals changed last night. I saw movement, real movement." Dr. Harris raised an eyebrow, skeptical but curious. He glanced at the monitors, then leaned over Ethan's bed. "Mr. Ward," he said firmly, "if you can hear me, move your fingers." The room fell silent. Then, slowly, Ethan's right hand shifted a faint, deliberate motion. "Doctor." Harris froze, eyes widening. "Well, I will be damned," he murmured, "after 11 months. He turned to Anna, his expression softening. "You might have just witnessed the start of a miracle, Nurse Monroe." Hours passed in a blur of medical activity. Tests were run, machines recalibrated, specialists consulted. The news spread through the hospital like wildfire. Ethan Ward, the sleeping CEO, had responded. By evening, Anna returned to the room, exhausted but exhilarated. Ethan's eyes were open now, faintly unfocused but aware. His gaze wandered across the room, then landed on her. You are awake, she whispered, stepping closer. His lips parted. The words came slow and dry, like the first crack of ice on a frozen river. Where am I? Westbridge Hospital, she said gently. You were in an accident, but you are safe now. His brow furrowed slightly as if searching through the fog in his mind. How long? Almost a year, Anna replied. You have been asleep for a long time. He blinked, the weight of that truth settling into his chest. His voice came again, rough but steady. You stayed. Anna hesitated, caught off guard. It was my job, she said, but her tone betrayed something softer. I am your nurse. He gave a faint, crooked smile. Then you are the most patient person alive. For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy with gratitude and something unspoken. Over the next few days, Ethan's recovery accelerated. Physical therapists came and went, guiding his limbs back to motion. His memory returned in fragments, flashes of boardrooms, a car, the rain, a blinding impact. But whenever Anna entered, the room seemed calmer. He began asking questions, simple at first. Do you always work nights? Only when the world is too quiet, she said with a grin. One afternoon, as sunlight pooled across the floor, Ethan asked, Do you ever talk to all your patients like that? Anna paused, rinsing a cloth in warm water. Only the ones who listen, she replied. You did, even when you could not speak. He looked at her, something flickering in his expression, recognition, maybe even affection. The silence between them was no longer awkward. It was alive. Days turned into weeks. Ethan could now sit up on his own, his voice stronger, his humor returning in pieces. But beneath his recovery, questions gnawed at him. Why had his car veered off the bridge? The police report called it an accident, but fragments of memory did not align. Late one night, while Anna adjusted his IV, he asked, Anna, did anyone visit me while I was out? She hesitated. Your lawyers came a few times. Your brother, too. His eyes darkened. Nathan? Yes, she said. He signed most of the medical documents. Why? Ethan stared ahead, jaw tightening. Because Nathan was the last person I spoke to before the crash. Anna froze. You think he had something to do with it? Ethan looked at her, voice low. I do not know. But if he did, then this was never an accident. The monitor beeped softly, echoing in the tense quiet. Anna met his eyes, determination replacing fear. Then we will find out the truth. Together, for a long moment, he simply looked at her, then nodded. You really do not give up, do you? She smiled faintly. Not on the people who still have a heartbeat. He leaned back, the first genuine smile since waking tugging at his lips. Then maybe that is why I came back. The jazz music played again in the background, warm and steady, the same tune she had played for him in the long silent nights. This time, he listened with open eyes. And for the first time, he smiled not as a patient, but as a man rediscovering what it felt like to be alive. By the second month of recovery, Ethan Ward was walking again, slowly but steadily. His once firm steps were now deliberate, every movement a small victory. The physical therapy wing had become his second battlefield, and Anna Monroe, his quiet companion through it all, was his anchor. She was there at every session, her voice calm, her eyes steady, guiding him with a patience that felt almost unreal. You are stronger than you think, she would tell him each morning, handing him the cane with a smile that somehow made the sterile room warmer. He would roll his eyes, pretending to be annoyed, but deep down, he knew she was right. The accident had stripped him of power, of certainty, of everything that once defined him. But through her, he was learning that strength could look softer, quieter, and far more human. One evening, as the sky outside burned orange over the city skyline, Anna found Ethan standing by the window in his hospital robe, staring out at the horizon. You are supposed to be resting, she said, half joking, half concerned. I have been resting for almost a year, he replied, his voice deeper now, the sharpness returning, though laced with warmth. I need to remember what the world looks like. She stepped beside him, following his gaze. Beautiful, isn't it? He nodded. Almost as beautiful as the sound of you talking me through the worst days. She laughed softly. You remember that? Every word, he said, especially the part where you called me stubborn. She covered her mouth, embarrassed. I did not mean… You were right, he interrupted, smiling faintly. I was stubborn, still am. The silence that followed was gentle, charged with something new. He turned toward her, studying her face. "Anna, why did you stay?" She hesitated, searching for the right answer. "Because you needed someone to believe you could come back. And because I needed to prove to myself that hope is not foolish." His eyes softened, and for a moment, the man who had once been untouchable looked disarmed. "You did more than that," he said quietly. "You reminded me what it means to be alive." Days later, Ethan's discharge was scheduled. Dr. Harris congratulated them both, praising Ethan's resilience and Anna's dedication. But beneath the celebration, an unease grew. Ethan had been digging through old files, trying to piece together what had really happened that night of the crash. He found fragments of emails, financial records, and messages that pointed toward betrayal from inside his company. That afternoon, he shared his findings with Anna in the quiet of his suite. "The brakes on my car were tampered with," he said flatly. "The forensics report from the insurance company was edited before it reached the police. Only one person had access to those files, Nathan." Anna's hands tightened around the clipboard she was holding. "You have proof?" "Not yet, but I will." She shook her head, worry creasing her forehead. "Ethan, you just got your life back. Please do not risk it again." He met her gaze firmly. "I cannot move forward without the truth, Anna. Someone tried to kill me. If I let that go, then what was all this for?" She fell silent, realizing there was no convincing him otherwise. That night, while the hospital corridors grew quiet, Anna found herself replaying his words. Something in his determination scared her, not because he was wrong, but because she cared, deeply, more than she should. When she returned to his room near midnight, Ethan was awake, seated in bed, papers spread across his lap. "You should sleep," she said softly. "So should you," he countered, without looking up. She smiled faintly. "Touché." After a pause, he asked, "If you had the chance to walk away from something painful, would you take it?" She took a breath. "Maybe not. Some things are worth the pain if they mean something real." He looked at her then, really looked, and said quietly, "You are not just my nurse, Anna. You are the reason I am standing here." The words hung between them, unspoken yet undeniable. The heart monitor beat softly, steady and alive, like the rhythm of something new beginning. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, a storm gathering over the city, mirroring the one about to erupt in their lives. But for now, in that fragile peace, it was just them, two hearts healing in the quiet glow of second chances. 2 weeks after his discharge, Ethan Ward returned to his penthouse overlooking the city. It should have felt like victory, but the silence inside the vast marble walls was heavier than the hospital's. Dust had gathered over his grand piano, the once busy office desk lay untouched, and the framed awards stared back at him like ghosts of the man he used to be. Anna Monroe visited twice a week for home checkups, per doctor's orders. Each time she arrived, the sterile emptiness seemed to breathe again. "You have more space here than the entire hospital," she said one morning, setting her medical bag on the kitchen counter. "And yet you never opened the curtains." Ethan gave a half smile. "Old habit. I was too busy chasing success to look out the window." She opened the blinds anyway, letting sunlight pour into the room. Dust particles floated like tiny gold sparks. "Well, Mr. Ward, consider this your first therapy session," she teased. He studied her in the light, her hair glowing softly, her eyes full of quiet strength. For the first time, this penthouse felt like home. Over the next days, she helped him regain routine medication, stretches, short walks on the terrace. The moments between grew longer, softer. Sometimes, they shared coffee in silence. Other times, she would laugh at his failed attempts to cook oatmeal. "You ran a billion-dollar company," she said once, grinning, "but you cannot even boil water without burning it." He shrugged. "Maybe I needed someone to teach me the basics." "Oh, please," she replied, "you are hopeless." But her laughter betrayed how much she enjoyed being there. Their connection deepened quietly, built on small gestures, a shared meal, a bandaged hand, a late-night conversation under city lights. Yet, underneath the warmth, shadows remained. Ethan continued digging into the night of the crash, convinced his brother Nathan was behind it. One evening, Anna arrived to find him pacing his office, a folder open on the desk. "You are supposed to rest," she said. "I found something," he replied, his tone clipped. He handed her a printed email. It was dated a week before the accident. Nathan had authorized a transfer of funds from the company's R&D budget to a private account money Ethan had never approved. I confronted him about this, Ethan said. That same night, I drove off that bridge. Anna's face went pale. You think he tried to silence you? I do not think, he said grimly. I know, she set the paper down slowly. Then you need to take this to the authorities, not handle it alone. I will, he said, though his jaw tightened. She could tell he was already planning something reckless. Later that night, after he had fallen asleep on the couch, Anna sat in the dim light of the living room, the folder in her lap. She felt torn between fear and loyalty. She wanted justice for him, but she also wanted to keep him safe from his past, from his anger, from himself. The next morning, Ethan woke to find her in the kitchen, her expression calm but resolved. I made a copy of the file, she said, and I sent it to someone I trust, a detective I used to work with during my training at the clinic. If what you believe is true, they will find evidence the right way. He stared at her, both moved and furious. You went behind my back. I protected you, she said firmly. You survived one attempt, Ethan. Do not invite another. He ran a hand through his hair, torn between frustration and gratitude. Finally, he sighed. You are impossible. She smiled softly. So are you. For a moment, their eyes locked, neither looking away. The storm of anger passed, leaving only the ache of something unspoken. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Anna, every day I wake up, I wonder if you are real. If I dreamed you in that hospital room. I am very real, she whispered. And I am not going anywhere. Outside, thunder rumbled again, echoing across the skyline. But this time, neither of them flinched. The war ahead was coming, but they were no longer alone. For the first time in his life, Ethan Ward did not face his demons as a powerful man trying to control the world, but as a man finally learning how to trust someone enough to share it. The next week unfolded like the calm before a storm. Ethan Ward's case had quietly landed on Detective Cole Anderson's desk, thanks to Anna's discreet message. The man was known for his precision and silence, a friend of justice who rarely spoke until he had proof. Meanwhile, Ethan continued physical therapy at home, though his focus had shifted from recovery to retribution. Anna could see it in his eyes, the restlessness, the sleeplessness, the way his hand tightened around the phone whenever an unknown number appeared. One afternoon, as she changed his wound dressing, she said gently, "You need to eat, Ethan. You are running on coffee and anger." He gave a small smirk but did not argue. "When this is over, I will eat, sleep, and maybe even breathe again." "You are impossible," she muttered, shaking her head. He looked at her then, softer. "You have said that before, and I will keep saying it until you listen." The moment broke into a quiet laugh, but the tension never truly left the room. 2 days later, Detective Anderson called. Anna answered on speaker as Ethan sat nearby. "Miss Monroe," the detective said, his voice low and deliberate. "You were right to contact me. We ran a digital trace on the financial transfers. Your instincts were spot on. The same account that rerouted the funds was linked to a shell company registered under Nathan Ward's assistant's name." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. So it was him. "It appears so," Anderson continued. "But we will need a direct confession or physical proof to make an arrest. I would advise caution. He has powerful connections and nothing to lose." When the call ended, the room fell silent. Anna could feel Ethan's pulse through the air. "Promise me," she said quietly, "you will let the police handle it." Ethan's jaw flexed. "If I promise, will you believe me?" "No," she replied honestly, "but I will stay until you do the right thing." That night, the city glowed under rain again, a haunting mirror of the night of his crash. Ethan stood by the window, staring at the streetlights that blurred through raindrops. Memories returned like flashes. Nathan's voice, the argument, the steering wheel jerking from his hands. He closed his eyes, fists clenching. "He almost killed me," he whispered. Behind him, Anna's voice broke the silence. "But he did not. You are still here, and you have something he does not. Conscience." He turned toward her, eyes dark with turmoil. "You think conscience stops people like him?" "No," she said softly. "But it keeps people like you from becoming him." For a moment, neither spoke. Then he stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "You always know what to say." "It is my job," she said, "healing people." He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You have done more than that, Anna. You healed what I thought was beyond repair." She froze, breath catching, the world narrowing to the warmth in his eyes. But before she could answer, her phone buzzed sharply. A message from Detective Anderson lit the screen. Asterisk, asterisk. Nathan just booked a flight to Zurich. Moving money. We may lose him if we do not act fast. Asterisk, asterisk. Ethan saw the message, his expression hardening. "He is running," he said. Anna grabbed his arm. "Do not, Ethan. Please. I cannot let him disappear," he said, pulling away. "You said you wanted justice. So do I. But not like this," she pleaded. "You are still healing." He turned back, his voice quiet but resolute. "I am done healing. It is time to fight." Before she could stop him, he grabbed his coat and walked out into the rain. Anna stood frozen for a moment, then rushed to follow, calling his name. The city swallowed her voice, thunder cracking in the distance. The chase for truth had begun, and this time, the fight would decide not just justice, but the cost of their hearts. For Ethan Ward, the storm was no longer outside. It was inside him, roaring back to life. And the only person standing between him and destruction was the nurse who had once brought him back from the edge of death. The rain came down hard that night, washing the streets of the city in silver streaks. Ethan Ward's black car cut through the storm, his mind a battlefield of rage and resolve. The wipers beat furiously, but his thoughts were louder every betrayal, every lie, every moment lost to the coma that his brother had caused. Behind him, Anna Monroe clutched her phone, her heart pounding as she followed his location on the GPS. "Please, Ethan," she whispered to herself, "do not do this." At a luxury downtown hotel, Nathan Ward was packing his suitcase when the door burst open. Ethan stood there, soaked to the bone, his voice low and trembling with fury. "Going somewhere, brother?" Nathan froze, then slowly turned. His face was calm, practiced, the smirk of a man who believed himself untouchable. "Ethan," he said smoothly, "you should still be in recovery." "Recovery ended the night I remembered," Ethan said, stepping closer. "You tried to kill me." Nathan chuckled, shaking his head. "That is a bold accusation. You think anyone will believe the ramblings of a man who almost died?" Ethan slammed a folder onto the table. "They will, when they see the transfer records, the edited insurance report, and the emails you sent through your assistant's account. I have everything." For the first time, Nathan's smirk faltered. "You do not know what you are doing." "I know exactly what I am doing," Ethan said coldly. "I am ending this." Just then, the elevator bell chimed. Anna stepped out, drenched and breathless. "Ethan, stop!" she cried, rushing between them. "Do not throw away everything you have fought for." Ethan's hands were shaking, his voice breaking. "He stole my life, Anna, my company, my future." "Then take it back the right way," she said firmly. "Let the law handle it. You survived to prove you are better than him." Nathan sneered. "How poetic. The nurse preaching morality. Do you even know who you are defending? He built his empire crushing people like you." Anna turned to Nathan, her voice steady. "Maybe he did once, but people can change." "You cannot." Ethan's chest heaved, his knuckles white. For a long moment, it seemed he might strike his brother. Then, from behind Anna, the sound of a door closing broke the tension. Two men stepped in, Detective Cole Anderson and another officer, badges glinting under the dim hotel light. "Nathan Ward," Anderson said calmly, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit attempted murder, corporate fraud, and obstruction of justice." Nathan's face went pale. "You set me up," he hissed. Ethan met his eyes without a trace of regret. "No, you did that yourself." The officers cuffed Nathan and read him his rights. As they led him away, the older brother's cold glare met Ethan's one last time before disappearing into the hallway. Silence filled the suite, heavy and final. Anna exhaled, her hands trembling. Ethan looked at her, the storm outside reflected in his eyes. "You called him," he said quietly. "You brought Anderson here." She nodded. "I told him where you were going. I was not going to lose you again." For the first time, Ethan's anger broke into something raw, grief, exhaustion, relief. He took a step closer, his voice cracking. "You saved me. Again." "It is what I do," she said softly. "But you have to save yourself now." Ethan sank into a chair, running a hand through his hair as sirens wailed faintly below. "For years, I thought power would protect me, but it almost destroyed me." Anna knelt beside him, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe you needed to lose everything to see what really mattered. He looked at her then, eyes wet, voice unsteady. And what if what matters is right here? She smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. Then do not let it go this time. The storm outside began to fade, leaving only the quiet rhythm of rain against glass. Ethan reached for her hand, holding it as if anchoring himself to something real. For the first time, the weight of vengeance lifted, replaced by the fragile peace of justice served. And as dawn broke over the city, two broken souls sat together in silence, knowing that though the fight was over, their story was only beginning. The trial that followed drew attention from every media outlet in the city. Cameras flashed outside the courthouse, journalists shouted questions, and headlines screamed of betrayal, power, and greed. But for Ethan Ward, it was not about fame or revenge anymore. It was about closure. Sitting inside the courtroom, he watched as Nathan was brought in, his once perfect suit wrinkled, his arrogance stripped away. The prosecution presented the evidence, emails, bank transfers, and recordings that left no room for denial. When the verdict was read, the sound of the gavel echoed like thunder, guilty on all counts. Ethan exhaled, his hands trembling as the weight of months of anger and pain began to fade. Outside, the crowd erupted, but he did not stay for the cameras. Instead, he walked past them, his steps slow, purposeful, and free. Anna Monroe was waiting by the courthouse steps, her face calm despite the chaos around them. When he saw her, the corners of his mouth lifted for the first genuine smile in weeks. "It is over," she said softly. "It is," he replied, his voice quiet but steady. "Because of you." She shook her head. "No, Ethan, because you chose the right path when it mattered." He looked at her for a long moment before saying, "You kept me alive when I had nothing left. You believed when I could not." She smiled faintly. "That is what healing is, Ethan. It is not about curing what is broken. It is about helping someone find the strength to start again." They walked together down the steps, the morning sun breaking through the clouds, painting the city in gold. The world around them was loud, but between them, everything was still. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan began rebuilding his company not as the cold, relentless man he once was, but as someone who understood compassion. He reinstated employee programs, launched community initiatives, and dedicated a new foundation to victims of medical negligence and workplace injury. When reporters asked what inspired him, he simply said, "Someone taught me that saving lives is not just a job, it is a purpose." That someone was sitting beside him at every board meeting, quietly helping organize donations and outreach efforts. Anna had become more than his nurse, more than his friend. She was his compass, grounding him when the noise of success tried to return. One evening, as they prepared for the grand opening of the Ward Healing Foundation, Ethan found Anna alone in the event hall, adjusting the floral arrangements. The space glowed softly under string lights, and the scent of white lilies filled the air. "You know," he said as he walked toward her, "I still do not understand how you manage to make every room feel peaceful." She looked up smiling. "Habit, I guess. Hospitals teach you to create calm where there is chaos." He chuckled. "Then you must be exhausted after dealing with me." "A little," she teased. "But you turned out better than most patients." He stopped a few feet away, his tone changing. "Anna, I never thanked you. For any of it. You do not have to," she said gently. "You already did by living." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a silver cassette player, worn but repaired. "Do you remember this?" she gasped softly. "You fixed it?" "It kept me alive," he said. "Every night you played it, I heard it, even when I could not move. That music reminded me that life was still out there, waiting." Her eyes filled with tears as he placed the cassette player in her hands. "It is yours," he said, "but I made one small change." He pressed the play button, and instead of jazz, a soft piano melody filled the room. Then came his voice, quiet and sincere. "Anna Monroe, thank you for giving me back my life. But I do not just want to live, I want to live it with you." She looked up, stunned, as Ethan took a step closer, holding out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple diamond ring, elegant and understated. "Anna," he said, his voice trembling, "you came into my world to heal me, but somewhere along the way, you became the reason I never want to be alone again. Will you marry me?" For a moment, she said nothing, her hand covering her mouth, tears spilling freely. Then she nodded, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, Ethan, 1,000 times yes." The crowd outside cheered as the foundation doors opened. But inside that quiet hall, it was just them two souls who had walked through pain and found love on the other side. The melody played on, the same rhythm that once filled a hospital room, now echoing in the beginning of their forever. A year later, the world looked different for Ethan Ward and Anna Monroe. The Ward Healing Foundation had grown into one of the most respected charities in the country, providing care for patients who had no one else to fight for them. Its mission was simple but powerful: to bring hope to those who had lost it. The foundation's headquarters stood in the same building where Ethan's company once operated, a symbol of redemption built on compassion rather than ambition. That morning, the city skyline shimmered beneath a golden sunrise as preparations for a special event filled the halls. It was the foundation's first anniversary gala, and every corner of the room reflected the warmth of the lives they had touched. Ethan stood by the glass window, adjusting his tie, watching the staff finalize decorations. Anna approached quietly, dressed in a simple yet elegant ivory gown, her presence radiating calm. "You are nervous," she said with a smile. "You have faced courtroom trials, board meetings, and near-death experiences, but a speech still terrifies you." He chuckled softly. "It is not the speech. It is the idea of deserving all this." She touched his arm gently. "You do. We both do. This is not about the past anymore. It is about what we build from it." Ethan turned toward her, eyes full of affection. "You always know how to steady me." "That is what nurses do," she replied playfully, "even off duty." The laughter between them felt easy, earned, and real. As the evening began, guests arrived: doctors, patients, and families who had been saved through the foundation's work. Ethan took the stage, his voice steady but full of emotion. "A year ago," he began, "I stood in a hospital bed wondering if I would ever walk again. But a woman who refused to give up taught me that healing is not just about medicine. It is about kindness, patience, and love. This foundation exists because she showed me what real strength looks like." The audience turned toward Anna, who smiled shyly, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan continued, "Tonight, we celebrate not just recovery, but rebirth. For every life saved, for every soul restored, may this place remind us that second chances are not miracles, they are choices we make every day." Applause filled the room, long and heartfelt. After the ceremony, the lights dimmed, and soft music played. Ethan walked over to Anna, extending his hand. "May I have this dance, Mrs. Ward?" She grinned. "You never stop surprising me, do you?" "Only when it comes to loving you," he said as he pulled her close. They swayed under the soft glow of chandeliers, the melody slow and tender. Around them, laughter and conversation faded into the background, until it felt as if the world had narrowed to just two heartbeats moving in sync. "You know," Anna whispered, "if someone told me years ago that I would marry the man whose name was on every magazine cover, I would have laughed. And if someone told me the woman who saved my life would steal my heart, I would not have believed them either," he said, his voice warm against her ear. "Guess that makes us both fools." "The best kind," she replied. The music swelled, and outside, the city lights sparkled like a sea of stars. As the final notes played, Ethan leaned down and kissed her gently, sealing every promise they had made. When they pulled apart, he whispered, "You came as my nurse, but you became my greatest love." Anna smiled, resting her forehead against his. "And you became my reason to believe that healing can happen to anyone, even those who think they are beyond saving." The applause rose again as they turned toward the crowd, their hands intertwined, their faces glowing under the golden light. Somewhere in the back of the room, the old silver cassette player sat on display in a glass case, a symbol of where their story began. Its engraved plaque read, "For the one who taught me that love is the truest cure." And as the night carried on, Ethan and Anna danced among friends, laughter, and memories. Two hearts that had once been broken but had learned, together, how to beat again. Their story had begun in silence, but it ended in music, the kind that only love could play.